So many of us are asking God to get in line with what we have planned for ourselves and then get mad at him when nothing's working. When we don't acknowledge God, we end up filled with worry, strife, fear, and anxiety. And as I told you before, I can only tell you this because I know, I'm pretty young, but I've walked through the consequences of my own decisions in the past. And so I'm in the same boat as you. We be up in the boat like the disciples, and we say, Jesus, we're going to die. You're over here sleeping and we're going to die. What are you doing, Jesus? And Jesus wakes up and he says, shh, peace, be still. You see, we get caught up with all this other stuff in our life, and we place other things as more important than our relationship with God. We place our career as more important. We place a certain number that we need to reach. I need to get the 6 figures. We place a certain area, a certain vehicle. By the way, if anyone has an extra Corvette, I'll take it. We place all these things above our relationship with God. And then here's the thing though. So I was in the Army for a little bit. I know you can't tell. You're like, how could he ever obey orders? No, I'm just kidding. But so I was in the Army for a little bit, and I was in Kuwait, and it was just a training deployment. We never got spun up to do any combat or anything. But which was, now I look back, and it was a blessing from God, right? Because when you're young and you get into the Army, especially I was infantry, and so when you're infantry and you haven't gone to combat, and the ones that have, so your E5s and E6s that were in Afghanistan and Iraq, and they're sitting there teaching you the fundamentals of how you're going to soldier, how you're going to go about the battlefield. And it's kind of it's almost a disappointment if you haven't, in your eyes, it's like these guys are hardened actual combat veterans, and you're just this guy that's been sitting at home in safety. And so to not be in combat in my own eyes was oh man, I'm not as good as these other guys. They've been through the real deal. And one day I had my squad leader. He told me, because all of us young guys, we were just in a year or two, and we were all dude, it sucks. We've not experienced combat and everything. And our squad leader looked at us and he said, don't ever wish that you go to combat. Don't ever wish for that. He said, my friends were blown up right beside me. I've seen my friends shot, and that's stuff I can't, obviously with God, all things are possible, and he can heal those things but don't ever wish for that. Don't wish that you would see that type of stuff. And I believe that God did protect me, and I never had to. But anyway, I say all that. We were in Kuwait, and it was just a training deployment. But you get paid a little bit better when you go even on training deployments. So you make a little bit extra money. And so I was doing pretty good, saving up. You really can't spend your money on anything. It's all sand out there. What are you gonna do? So in my mind, I was all right, man, we've been sucking out in the sand over here, and it's hot, and it's 120 degrees, running around playing soldier, and it's just I was all right, when I get home, I'm going to do something that I've never done before. And I'm going to I want to experience something that I normally wouldn't experience. So as I said, I love cars, and I start thinking up, and I'm oh yeah, they have those sweet exotic car driving experiences. So you can book, like, so I went to Vegas, and you can drive like a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or like an Audi R8 or any one of the cool cars around a track. And so I was like, I'm doing that. And so I did. I booked it. And we go, and I get there. I booked a Lamborghini Huracan. It was a red Lamborghini. And I'm standing there, and they have all these cars parked, like every exotic car of its time. Like, I forget, what was that, 2015? Like all the brand new exotic cars just parked there. And I'm like walking up and down where they're parked, and I'm like, man, this is awesome. And they allow you to like sit in all of them. So I'm like, ooh, check me out, I'm in a Ferrari. Like, and then like, oh, now I'm in a Lamborghini, and now I'm in an Audi. Like, and so I'm like, it was a cool experience. It was cool. But then I get in the car, and you have a driver coach that coaches you. Okay, step on it, step on it, step on it. Like, keep going, keep going. All right, brake, downshift, downshift. And so he'll coach you through like all the corners and everything, and when to stay on the gas and when to hit the brake. And it was awesome. And my hands were so sweaty, like, because I didn't get the insurance. Like, you can purchase insurance if you crash this thing. You know, and I didn't get the insurance, and my hands were so sweaty, I was like, bro, I better not put this thing into a wall. I'm going to be paying for this for the rest of my life. Like, and so it was cool, like, just going down the straightaway, the coach is like, stay on it, and like, if this is the curve coming up and you're coming, I think I got to like 130 or something, the straightaway wasn't too long, but it gets up there quick. And so, and he's like, stay on it. I'm like, whoa, like in my mind, I'm like, we should brake. And then all of a sudden he's like, downshift. And like, you very rarely even use the brake. You go through the gears. And this car has so much grip. Like, I went through the corners like 90 miles an hour. Like, we were doing like sharp corners, and I was like, "Rrr!" And like, I was like, this is awesome. Like, but I say all that because in my mind, like, driving this Lamborghini was like one of the coolest things that I could think of to do. And I did it, and the experience faded. As soon as I got out of the car, like, you get a little bit of jitters, like, that was cool, but then it doesn't last. It's done. And the only thing that will last is your relationship with God. And so no matter what it is, if it's you need to be a certain financial status, if it's you need to live here to be the man or the woman, or you need this job to feel like you mean something, it doesn't last. Even if you get that position, even if you move to wherever you want, it's not going to last unless it's of God. I want to read out of that story. I talked a little bit about the boat, but in Mark 4:39 and 40, this is the disciples and Jesus are in the boat crossing the sea. And it says, in verse 39, it says, and he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. He said to them, why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith? So here's a little secret, right? Obviously, they're with Jesus. The disciples are with Jesus. He's the Prince of Peace. They should be at peace. They should be at rest, just as they saw their master at rest. But God doesn't want us to always have him come and bail us out at the last second with a big miracle. God doesn't want that. He wants it. It says, the Bible refers to us like as little children at first in our spirituality. When we get born again, we're like little babies. And as we walk with God, we're growing like little children. And then it says, as you come into maturity, you should no longer need your dad to hold your hand across the road. You should just know, I look both ways, I wait for the walk signal, and then I walk. Right? God wants us to mature. He doesn't want to hold your hand as an 80-year-old man. Like, don't get me confused. God is with you. God says he never leaves nor forsakes you, but he wants you to mature in your walk with him. He doesn't want you to stay little baby Christian in your spirit. And so he doesn't always want to have to come in and all of a sudden do a big miracle because of the previous decisions we made to lead ourselves into a place where we're in a rock and a hard spot now. And so God wants us to learn to walk in peace and operate by faith. What did Jesus tell the disciples right after he calmed the storm? He said, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" And so God wants us to mature in our walk. He wants us to move past the point where we need him to always come and intervene in some hard situation. Yes, we're going to have trials. We're going to have persecution. Jesus promised us that. We're going to come up against people that are going to speak out against us. Even with our finances, we have to trust God in every area. And you have to allow your faith to fully trust God. This is how, it says, you see, they still didn't fully trust God. They just saw, if you go back and read a little bit before that, it goes through, if you read in Matthew as well, there's like, Jesus was just doing miracle after miracle after miracle, and this is why Jesus got upset with them. He wasn't upset because they were, like, we all get afraid, we all get anxious, we worry about things. Jesus wasn't upset because they were worried. He was upset because he just showed them the power of God, and then they didn't take that to heart, and they just went on worrying. Like, why would Jesus let you drown in a boat if he just showed you the power of God to feed 5,000 people? Why would Jesus let you drown in a boat if he just opened the eyes of a blind man? Or just raised up a paralytic? Like, why would Jesus show you the power of God like that and then say, all right, we're going to drown in the sea right now? And that's what happens with us. Even from moment to moment or from season to season in our lives, sometimes we'll like, our faith will be up there. We'll be like, no, God's got this. And we'll be in the middle of a trial and we're like, no, I know God's going to come through. Like, I don't see how I'm going to make the bills this month, but I fully trust God that he's going to come through. And we'll be like on the mountaintop. And then 2 months later, we get like the disciples where we just saw God comes through, blesses you, all the bills are taken care of. And then we get like the disciples where it's like, then 2 months down the road, we're like, oh my gosh, God, I don't know how you're going to do this in my life. And we forget the miracle that God just did. And even the miracles that God has done in the Bible. He's the same God. The God that showed his power to Elijah is the same God that you're serving.